All right, let's get right into one of the most twisted and unsettling true crime stories of our time. It's a case that didn't start with a frantic 911 call, but with a single, chilling post on social media.
Can you imagine scrolling through your feed and seeing this? This bizarre, violent message just popped up on the Facebook page of a woman everyone in the community knew as this incredibly dedicated, loving mother. Her friends and neighbors immediately started to panic, fearing the worst for her and her daughter, Gypsy Rose, who they all believed was chronically ill.
So, police were called to their home in Springfield, Missouri, and when they got inside, they were faced with a really brutal crime scene and a mystery that was about to blow up everything the community thought they knew about this family.
See, the public story was simple, a saint of a mother giving everything for her very, very sick child. But the crime scene, it told a totally different tale. Dee Dee was dead. Her daughter Gypsy Rose was nowhere to be found. And here's the detail that made no sense to anyone. All of her wheelchairs were still sitting right there in the house.
A massive search kicked off to find this missing, supposedly helpless young girl. The whole thing moved incredibly fast. But what the police uncovered next would just shatter everyone's perception of this mother and daughter. So, investigators started with that creepy Facebook post. They followed the digital trail, tracking the IP address. And that trail led them hundreds of miles away from that little pink house where Dee Dee's body was found.
And for a moment, it seemed like a huge relief. They found her. She was safe, with a young man named Nicholas Godejohn. But that feeling of relief, it lasted for about 5 seconds.
And this is where the story just completely goes off the rails. The young woman who the entire world believed was suffering from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, you name it, she looked perfectly healthy. I mean, this moment right here gets to the absolute core of the whole twisted lie. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, the girl everyone had seen in a wheelchair for her entire life, just stood up and walked into police custody on her own 2 feet. This stunning reveal, of course, raised a massive question. If Gypsy wasn't sick, then what on earth was going on? Well, the answer is a lifetime of unbelievably calculated and systematic medical abuse.
Dee Dee's behavior was textbook factitious disorder imposed on another, which you might know by its older name, Munchausen syndrome by proxy. She wasn't making her daughter sick because she hated her. She was doing it because she had this pathological need for the sympathy, the attention, and the control that came with being the mother of a sick child.
And just look at this list. For almost 20 years, Dee Dee convinced doctors, charities, even news crews that Gypsy was suffering from all of these severe and completely fake illnesses. It's just staggering.
The level of deception was, well, it was horrifying. She shaved Gypsy's head to make it look like she was getting chemo. She had a feeding tube put in that she didn't need. She gave her medications that made her teeth fall out. It was constant daily manipulation to keep Gypsy a prisoner in her own body.
So as Gypsy got older, she started to secretly realize that her life was a prison, and she began to plot a desperate escape, an escape that would end in absolute violence. For Gypsy, the internet was everything. It was her only connection to the real world. It's how she found out her mom was even lying about how old she was, and it's how she met someone she thought could be her knight in shining armor.
And what started as this online fantasy of running away together just spiraled into a real-world murder plot. To them, it felt like the only way out. The only way to finally, permanently, break free from Dee Dee's control.
Okay, so now the whole shocking truth is out in the open. And the legal system has to deal with a question it has almost never seen before. How do you sentence someone for murder when they were also the victim of decades of unimaginable abuse?
And you can see right here, the courts handed down wildly different sentences. It really shows how the legal system tried to figure out who was to blame, the mastermind who was also a victim versus the person who actually held the weapon.
For Gypsy Rose, prosecutors acknowledged the insane level of abuse she'd been through her whole life. They offered her a plea deal for second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to just 10 years in prison.
But for Nicholas Godejohn, the man who actually wielded the knife, the sentence was absolute. He was convicted of first-degree murder and got life in prison, with no possibility of parole ever.
But you know, this story is so much bigger than just one tragic family. It really exposes a complete breakdown across multiple systems that are supposed to protect kids from exactly this kind of thing.
I mean, this is the question that just haunts you when you learn about this case. How in the world did this go on for 2 decades, right out in the open? How did everyone miss it?
And the answer is that the failure was everywhere. It was doctors who were either tricked or whose suspicions were ignored. It was charities that gave them free houses and trips without ever asking for proof. It was a broken medical record system that let Dee Dee just move to a new state whenever a doctor got too suspicious. At every single turn, the red flags were either missed or just dismissed.
Honestly, I don't think anything captures the pure psychological horror of what she went through better than Gypsy's own words right here. Just think about that. A prison cell felt more liberating to her than her own home.
And that really is the question this case leaves us with. The story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard isn't just some crazy isolated incident. It forces us all to ask about our own collective responsibility, to look a little closer, to ask questions, and to protect the people who can't protect themselves.